music and the comic strip are a beautiful blend.
Peanuts isn't naturally upbeat. Peanuts, the strip, is often downbeat, and I won't say serious, but people are frustrated and unhappy. The music is, for the most part, very joyful.
If only you weren't so wishy-washy.
I think adults related to it as much or more than kids did because it was universal. It told things about the human condition. And both children and adults, even though there are no adults in it, they think like adults. They express thoughts like adults. And it was a perfect vehicle, I think, for a musical. It had charm, it had wit, it had whimsy, and lovable characters.
I've always been a great fan of musical comedy theater. And when I sat in that empty theater and saw the cast of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and heard that fantastic music, I just thought it was going to run forever because it was just perfect. Back in 1966, after we had done a Charlie Brown Christmas and the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, a young fella from Brooklyn flew out to my home in California, and his name was Clark Gessner, and he wanted to play some music he had written. And I agreed to listen to it, and he sat down at my piano, and I was enthralled for the next hour by one of the best musical scores I'd ever heard. And I said, well, what do you plan to do with that? And he said, well, I think it would make a great show off Broadway. And I said, with little kids? He said, no, with adults. Well, I said to myself, I don't know if adults will work or not, but maybe I should send them up to Charles Schulz anyway and have them meet. So we arranged a meeting, and he went up there and he played the music for Charles Schulz, and Schulz loved it, loved everything about it, and gave Clark the green light to go ahead and do a stage musical.
Well, it all started actually with a record. There was what they called an original album musical, which was basically 10 songs about the Charlie Brown characters, but it didn't have all the scenes within it, didn't have all the conversational parts. It was just the music, it was just songs. That was something that Clark Gessner had pitched to Charles Schulz as something they wanted to do, and Schulz had okayed it, and so they'd come out with this album, had Orson Bean as Charlie Brown, and then the next year they decided to take it to the stage.
When they first did it, it was done off-Broadway in a very small theater, and no one knew whether it was going to work, whether it would really appeal to anybody. I think it was even a 99-seat theater called St. Mark's Place. Nobody had any idea of what it was going to be like other than we knew of the comic strip because it was very, very popular, and we knew it was little kids, and we couldn't figure out exactly how they were going to do it with live actors. And it was a whole vision that Clark Gessner and Joe Hardy, who was the director, they had visualized grown-ups playing children, but in very light voices.
Hi, Snoopy. Cute doggy. What do you say, Tiger?
They didn't have a script. All they had was the songs. So they workshopped the piece. Each of the actors, the director, anybody involved would be bringing in, say, let's do this bit, let's do that bit. Hey, here's my favorite Peanut strip, let's include that. And so they didn't actually have a written script. The strip has certain, well, being a comic strip, it is inherently, you have one strip one day, one strip the next, and even though sometimes they might connect, they're each designed to stand on their own. So the Peanuts fan is used to that sort of installment.
Clark Gessner I think Sparky was very fond of him when he did meet him, but he didn't have anything to do with the way the show was put together, but I think he was very pleased with it and felt that it suited his characters and that they had pulled things exactly from the strip. If you see parallels in all the animated shows, to direct lines from the comic strip, including, of course, Linus's famous Christmas speech. But they had taken it so well out of the strip that it was a brilliant job.
Now, this is what you call a failure face, Linus. Notice how it has failure written all over it.
Well, of course, you've got Lucy going after Schroeder. You've got Charlie Brown flying his kite, which is always an exercise in frustration. You've got the kids playing baseball. You've got Snoopy dancing happily about his supper. So you've got a lot of the common tropes that built around these ideas.
But it works, each piece kind of stands on its own, and that's one of the things that I think makes it work so well, that each little scene stands alone as almost a comic strip that you're picking up and reading, and has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then you go off to the next character. Adaptations are very difficult. They're not easy, especially when you're taking a piece of material that is not a musical, and you have to decide which characters sing, when do they sing, when do they dance, and how do you tell the story with words, and how do you tell the story with music.
Okay, there's no need for a big production.
And it's quite difficult. You really have to take the most interesting moments, and they become the songs. And the book is a little sketchy in most musicals. But Charlie Brown was really a very special thing because it was such a great comic strip.
There is no team like the best team, which is our team. Right here, we will show you we're the best team in the very little league this year. And in no time, we'll be big time with the big league baseball stars. For all we have to do is win this one more game, and the championship is ours.
Art is reinterpretation. Whether you see something in life and you say, hey, here's one way to look at it, or whether you see something existing on the page, you see a book and here's how we make the movie. All of art is reinterpretation to some degree. In the case of the animated show of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, we have the animated special based on the stage play, based on the record, based on the strip. So we've got a whole series of reinterpretations, and it's like watching your favorite musician do a cover of a song you really liked by somebody else. They're bringing something new to the game. They may miss out on some of what made the original special, but they bring something new and create something that is recognizable but different. And that's a lot of fun.
Would you welcome the originator of Peanuts, Mr. Charles Schulz? There's got to be kind of a thrill to see that come alive with the people.
I think of all of the things that have happened to me, this is probably one of the most gratifying because cartoonists sit in little rooms all by themselves and they never get to hear the people laugh at what they've done. And it was always a wonderful experience for me to sit in a theater and finally hear some of the people laugh at some of these lines.
That's true. I was thinking the same thing, that you sit there and you do the strip and you send it in and you say, gee, I wonder if that was any good or if that was funny this week or today.
And I don't know until, well, maybe 12 weeks later after the paper comes out, then it's too late.
Too late, yeah, is it ever? You've been doing Peanuts, somebody said, and I didn't realize it, for 23 years?
23 years and the newspaper comes out every day.
That's incredible. That's an incredible record.
The thing I loved was that he always said that he loved it when he sat in the rehearsals and heard people laugh and sat in the audience and heard people laugh at his lines, because he said when you sit in your room by yourself and draw something, you never know if it's funny. But then suddenly he got an affirmation about it. And when people would say, I saw your strip today, I thought it was really funny, he'd say, oh, I'm glad you liked it. Always as though he never really knew what other people thought about it.
I guess it hasn't been such a bad day after all.
Happiness is finding a pencil, knowing a secret, telling the time.
Happiness is very interesting because if you recall, afterwards people came out with the love is, and he would say, they stole that from me. Well, yeah, Not exactly, but happiness still is one of those phrases that belongs to Peanuts.
Is walking hand in hand.
Happiness is two kinds of ice cream, finding a pencil, the simple things in life. I would love that song. That was like my favorite moment at the end of the show, singing that. And it's happy, and that's what I think appealed to people. But it also is very, very honest about how people feel.
That's love by you.
Had fantastic music, a good book put together by Clark Gessner, who also wrote the music. Great actors on the off-Broadway show originally, and it was just a confluence of all the same elements that we'd had on animation had happened on the musical comedy stage.
If we don't rehearse, we can't sing at the assembly tomorrow.
And then, of course, 20 years after it opened on Broadway, we ended up animating the show, so everything came full circle.
Quiet! Now, remember, this is a mood piece.
In the mid-1980s, we decided to do a takeoff on the movie Flashdance, and we did a show called Flash Beagle. And there was a young girl there, along with a couple other kids, who did some singing. They were 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, and they were fantastic. One of them happened to be Stacey Ferguson, who went on to be Fergie. And so we decided maybe we could do an animated version of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, because we could find young kids who could sing. And so once we crossed that bridge, we knew we could do it, and that's when we animated You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown.
You can do it with wonderful adult singing, and for off-Broadway and then for the 1970s Broadway version, adults were cast. When it came time to do the animated version, though, they were doing it more in the tradition of animated Peanuts, in which kids were always voiced by kids.
This is for you, Lucy. Happy Valentine's Day. No, that doesn't sound right.
I should note that, though, that there is one exception to the use of kids in this new special, and that is Snoopy. For the first time, they had to have somebody voice Snoopy, and they got an adult. Snoopy'd always had just the barking and giggling voice done by Bill Melendez, the animator. And he was still doing that role in this version, but they actually brought in a speaking, singing Snoopy.
I wonder if it'll snow tonight.
I think You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown has such a lasting impact because it brings us the Peanuts characters we love, the Peanuts characters we're familiar with a different dimension, a different angle on it, with that musical angle, so we can be looking at it through fresh eyes.
Well, the success of the animated shows was a combination of great child actors, great music, and of course, basically the humor and philosophy of Charles Schulz, and all those same elements are in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown.
Sparky used to say to people with a certain amount of pride, do you know that You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown is the most performed musical in the world, I suppose.
If you hang around theater circles, everybody's done this show at some point. I played Linus once upon a time, even I've done it. So it's one you can talk to people and they say, oh yeah, I've done that twice.
The show is so true to the comic strip that anybody who likes the comic strip loves the show, and that's I think why it was so successful. It was absolutely faithful to the spirit and the innocence and intelligence of the comic strip.
I think it's almost become a rite of passage if you're interested in musical theater. At the grammar school level or the high school level, you have to do You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. That's the first test for a lot of kids.